Alright, here's our project for this video. I've titled this Night Owl. Very cute little owl. I enjoyed doing him, so let's get started. Okay, to begin this project, the surface that I'm painting on, now you can paint on any surface that you want, but this is a box that I bought at Hobby Lobby. They have them in the fall. They come in a variety of colors. They come in this yellow color, a more orangey color, a like olive green, a dark brown, a kind of rusty red color. They're all fall colors, and they all say something different on the top. You see they're already finished inside, and I use them to either give a small gift in, or I make a set of coasters that match what I painted on top to go inside. It's a great surface to paint on because the side, especially if you're doing fall, it's done. You don't have to do anything to the sides. The top is a rough texture, so you can just start painting right on top of it. So if you have a Hobby Lobby near you, I highly recommend stocking up on these. They have them 40% off every other week until Christmas, you know, when they start getting their fall stuff out of the way. And then when they're discounting their fall stuff, trying not to have to store so much stuff, they will have them, you know, 60, sometimes 80% off. So if you have a chance to buy some, I would recommend it. They are regularly full price, $6.99. So if you get them 40% off or even 60% off, that is a great buy for a surface that is basically already prepped, painted, and ready to go for you. You just have to change the top. Now for the top, because I don't want to have to worry about any of this bleeding through into my painting, I always prime it with an interior. This is an interior-exterior primer. This was white, and then I just had them tinted gray. A gray sky or a slate gray. I think this might be in between the two. I like the gray sky color for undercoating. So that's the color I would recommend if you're going to go get some primer and have it tinted. Take a bottle of gray sky with you and have them mix it that color. And then I just use an old paintbrush and just apply a couple of coats. I want to make sure that undercoating is painted. You want to lay your brush. When you're going to the edges, lay your brush flat and let it just kind of come off of the edge. That way you won't get it around on the edges. So you'll do this all the way around. And then you can just smooth it out. So then just kind of smooth it out. Get your brush strokes out. So I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to apply a second coat on here. I want to make sure that is good and covered up right there. Like I said, use an old brush for base coating so you don't have to worry about damaging it in any way, since that's got a little bit of texture on it. That's one of the things I like about these boxes, that little bit of texture on there. Okay, so I'm going to get mine dry and get a second coat on here. We're going to come back and start adding our base coats on here. Alright, I've got my 2 coats of gray primer on here. I lightly sanded it. I'm going to wipe off your sanding dust. And now we're going to base coat it with lavender. I'm still going to use just my old brush here. I like to use an older brush when I'm base coating because you can be a little bit more rough with it and not have to worry about damaging a good brush. I'm doing a couple of thin coats on here. Remember, go out to your edges, kind of lay your brush flat. You'll need a little bit of water in your brush so that you can move the paint. Another trick, if your paint starts feeling dry and doesn't want to move, you can lightly mist it. Hold the misting bottle way back and lightly mist it. So the first coat is not going to be Super great coverage. So we're going to let that dry. Lightly sand it if you need to, and then apply a second coat of lavender. Alright, my first base coat on here is dry, so I am going to spritz this very lightly and apply a quick second coat on here. I want this to stay wet because I want to now add some colors into this lavender. So keeping it wet is very important. So I'm going to spritz it again. I'm going to go dirty brush into some turquoise blue, and I want to keep this at the top. And a little ultramarine blue, and we'll keep it at the bottom. I want this to be a lot darker, so gently blend it. So I'm going to go pick up some more turquoise. Put that up here, ultramarine blue down here. I want this to be a lot darker. This is a night sky here. Some lavender in the middle. More turquoise. I want this really bright. So I've kind of picked up all three on the brush. Just going to smooth these coats out now. A little bit more turquoise and purple. Alright. Just smooth it out. You want kind of that transition of colors through there. The purple in the center, turquoise on the top, and the ultramarine blue at the bottom, but gently blend them. So if your paint starts getting a little bit sticky, very, very lightly mist it, because you don't want to water your paint down too much. And if you've got too much water, then just let it dry and come back, and this time don't add quite as much water on the surface. Just add more paint, a little less water, and blend it quickly, and you should be good to go. Okay, I'm going to get this dry, and then we're going to get our pattern transferred on here. Okay, mine's dry. I've got the pattern on it. The bottom down here doesn't look quite as dark as what I would like, so I may darken that up a little bit. But before we get to painting on this, I want to spatter some stars in the background. Not really a huge fan of spattering because I don't like the mess that it makes, but I feel like this night sky needs it. So I'm going to take, this is my favorite rake brush. It's a Royal 1/2 inch. I've had this brush forever. So I'm going to get some water in my brush and pull some paint out and thin my paint down. Okay, then I'm going to just test it, see how it's going to come off. That looks pretty good. There's some stars in the sky, and so then I'm just going to start spattering on some stars, and if I get it on my owl, I'm just going to take a damp brush and clean it off. I'm not too worried about the moon because we're going to be I think that's a pretty good amount of stars in our sky. I'm going to take a small flat brush. I need to get these spatters completely dry before I try and do anything else. So for you, if you want to spatter before you put your pattern on, you can, but really there's not much difference between spattering before or after. Okay, so I'm going to get my spatters completely dry, and then we'll be moving on to the next step. Okay, I think my spots are mostly dry on here, so we're going to start adding some color on our owl here. The face and the breast of the owl we're going to base in with fawn. Now this is going to take a couple of coats to cover up that blue. So I'm just going to go right over the feet here because I can paint them back in later instead of trying to go around each one of those. If your paint's not moving very well, add a little bit of water to it. I probably could have got a little bit bigger brush, but I want you to use whatever brush you're comfortable using. The size that I'm using is an 8 flat. I didn't transfer on the eyes or the beak. We'll do that after we get all this base coated in. I'm not really a animal person. You know, I don't really know what birds look like. Any animal, for that matter. I mean, I know what they look like. I just don't. I'm not proficient in painting them as well as some other artists are. But doesn't mean I won't give it a go. Okay, so the darker parts on the owl we're going to base in with sable brown. So it will be this wing here. And the wings over here. And then whatever this is called on the top here, we'll base this in as well. We're going to base the moon in with moon yellow, same color we did with our stars. Oops. Yeah, I kind of messed my shape up there. Let's see if I can fix it. Got my fan blowing right on my paint, so it's drying it out before I can even get it to my project. Okay, I'm gonna have to fix that. That is gonna bug me like crazy. Okay, that looks a little bit better there. Moon yellow. Let me get a round brush here for our moon. And then, I haven't decided yet what color to base our limb in. I think this is going to be a pretty quick project. just using a 3 round. If you like to use a filbert or a flat, then use the brush that works best for you. Some of us oh, I'm just messing this moon all up. Some of us have our favorite brushes that we like to use. And I am just really boogering this moon up. It would have been better if I could have stayed between the lines, huh? My moon got a little bit bigger than I wanted, but I think it'll be alright in the end. Okay, that's a sloppy moon, but it'll have to do. Okay, for our branch, let's base it in with burnt umber. I'm not going to worry too much about these skinny ones that are coming out. We're just going to concentrate on the fat part of the branch for now. So I'm going to get my first coats on here on camera, and then I'll go off camera and get my second coats on, because I think most of you probably know how to do your base coating and have a certain way that you like to do it. So this is for all those out there that don't necessarily have a particular way. As sloppy as that moon was, you may not want to do it my way. So burnt umber. I don't always do the base coating on camera because it takes so much time to do, and most people know how to do base coating, but there are a few people that like to see it. So if I can work that into the video, I'm happy to do it. If you don't want to watch this part, you can just fast forward through this part and get on to the painting part of it. But for those of you that needed a little bit of tutelage, there was some crazy tutelage going on here. So I'm going to get this dry and get my second coats on and come right back. Okay, I've started base coating in my eyes and my feet. Now the feet and the beak we are going to base in with Tangelo orange, but Tangelo orange is a little bit transparent. So I'm mixing my first initial coat with some moon yellow. So just mix a nice kind of orangey color. Make these a little bit bigger. And then when we come back with our second coat, we'll put our just straight Tangelo on. It will probably take a third coat on here for the Tangelo to cover this completely. We're going to do the same thing with the beak up here. And then the eyes, you're just going to do a couple of coats of Snow White. That's just a diamond shape for his nose there. Okay, so I'm going to get these dry and go get the rest of the base coats on. Okay, we're going to start working on the moon. I went ahead and drew in some lines for the owl's eyes. We'll be working on those here in a few minutes. So with the moon, I want to shade on it with some antique gold. And I want the shaded side to be this edge right here, because it's the side that's still hidden. So I'm just going to float some antique gold on here. I'm using an angle brush, and I might switch over to a curved flat, or just a flat brush. I've never been a huge fan of angle brushes. So while that's drying, we're going to take some turquoise blue and a little bit of Snow White. Now you can make your eyes whatever color you want. We haven't used green in this project, but we probably will on some leaves here. So you can paint your eyes the green, or you can paint them blue, or you can paint them brown, because I think technically their eyes are brown, but I'm going to paint them turquoise blue. So I'm going to mix some turquoise blue and some white and get a pretty soft color of blue there. A little bit too much water in my brush. And then I drew my lines on kind of dark, so I'm going to try and stay off of those lines. I drew them so that you could see them. So we're going to go inside here with our blue. And I'll come back and apply a second coat on here. Okay, I'm going to let that dry before we do the inside there, which is going to be black. So this is dry. I want to darken up that antique gold. So I want it to be just a little bit darker. And I think I will go to my number 6 curved flat here. Now remember, when you're using your brushes, you got to wake them up. You can't just take them dry and just dip them into a little bit of water and expect them to work like they're supposed to work for you. You got to wake them up. You got to soak the bristles in water, get those bristles completely full and plump, and they're ready to go for you. And then you just lay it on a paper towel after you let it fill up with water completely. Then you just lay it on a paper towel and let the excess water wick out, and your brush is conditioned and ready to go for you. So I'm going to take my antique gold and I'm going to dip into a little bit of burnt umber. I just want to slightly darken that antique gold. Touch my paper towel to get any excess paint off of the tip of it, and then we're going to come along just on this inside edge here. Put that second shading on there. Now the first shade in Antique Gold came out a little bit farther, so this one I wanted to keep much more tight on that edge right there. Okay, my eyes are probably dry enough now. I can erase my lines. I'm going to go ahead and erase the ones in the center too if I haven't painted over them. And then we can apply a second coat on the eyes. So mine was turquoise blue, so whatever color you're making your eyes, and some white mixed together. Make sure you've got a good brush. You've got a little bit of water in your paint so that you can stay up more on the tip. If your paint's more dry, you have a tendency to push down on the bristles and causes fatter, not so nice painting lines. So try to keep your up on the tip of the bristles. Okay, so back to the moon here. I'm going to take some cad yellow And we're going to float a little bit of a highlight on here, on this outer edge. I'm just going to brighten this up. Give it a brighter side of the moon. Alright, I'm going to go back to his eyes and add my black in there. Add a tiny little bit of water to your paint so it will make it flow off of your brush nicely. I'm going to have to get me some stronger glasses here. Hang on just a second. I have a new prescription for my glasses, but I keep wearing the old ones because I like them the best. The bifocal on them is just not quite as strong as I need it to be. Okay. Try to keep your shapes nice. Okay. I think while I have my white out, I need to do just a tiny bit of adjusting over here. Too much water. Now I left my box the color it was that I purchased it, but you can certainly paint. You'll have to sand the sides a little bit because they are not a rough texture like the top was. So the sides you'll have to sand a little bit, and you'll have to prime them with the interior primer and paint them. And I would recommend taking your hardware off to do that, unless you want your hardware painted. Now these kind of screws are brass, and they will strip out very easily. So you've got to make sure you've got a screwdriver that fits tight in there just right. Keep your screwdriver straight up and down. Give pressure on the screwdriver with one hand and turn it with the other hand. Okay, and that will help keep those from stripping out. Alright, I'm going to add a little bit more cad yellow, and I'm going to add a touch of white to it. So I just dipped into each one time and mixed them on my brush. My brush feels dry. Let me get some water in it. I need to spritz some water on my palette. So one dip of each color. I always go touch my paper towel before I bring my brush over to apply it, in case I've got some kind of big fat glob of paint on the tip of it that I don't want to get on my project. Okay, that one looks pretty good there. I'm going to get my second coat on my eyes with the black. This time you can have the paint a little bit thinner, because you're just going to kind of fill in any places that didn't get the black the first time. Didn't get it good. Alright, I'm going to darken on this side of the moon with a equal, well, let's see, no, it's a 2-to-1, 2 ultramarine blue and 1 soft black. And I'm not keeping the paint very dark, very heavy. It's more of a sheer kind of paint. We're just going to darken that a little bit. Almost looks like an eclipse. Okay, we want a dry brush around our moon. So we take a dry, scruffy brush, we pick up cad yellow, we go to a dry paper towel, and we rub it off. Now this will require several times of doing this because the yellow, when it gets on the blue, will start to turn green. And to make it look yellow, we have to repeat it a few times. But you need to make sure your paint is dry before you go and apply more. It's just a gentle rubbing. Not much pressure. You can use any scruffy brush that you have, that you like. This is a Low Cornell 1/4 inch crescent brush, which is a discontinued brush, but I still have some of these on my website as the making of this video. So I don't know how long they'll last, but I have some. Alright, I'm going to bring this out a little bit. Create a nice glow here, and when we get done painting our owl, we'll put a little bit of yellow glow on the owl. It's the softest of pressure there because I don't want to leave a lot of paint. I think I'm going to have to get just a tiny bit of moon yellow out. Mix it with my cad yellow. You can bring the glow out as far as you want to bring it out, but it's gonna stay the darkest right next to the moon. Alright, so now I want to take some Snow White and brighten this edge of the moon. Okay, that was just with Snow White. Now, to clean your scruffy brush out, if you've only got one, I'm not sure if we're going to use this again, so you might as well go ahead and clean it until you can clean it properly after you're done painting. But in case you may need to use it, clean it with some hand sanitizer. Just work some hand sanitizer into it a couple of times and wipe it out on a dry paper towel, removing the paint and the hand sanitizer at the same time. It's mostly alcohol, 99.9% alcohol, I think. Oh, this one's 63% alcohol in it. So if you don't have hand sanitizer handy, you can use just rubbing alcohol. It will do the same thing. And just wipe out all the excess out of the brush. Clean it out really good until you can properly clean it with some good brush cleaner when you're done painting. Okay, so we're going to move back to the eyes here. And I want to outline on the blue a little bit. I think I also want to do something else to the blue. So I am going to try and find a very fine tip round brush or liner. I've got one here I've never used before, so I think I'll get me a 10-0 liner. I'm used to using it. It's my favorite brush. Let me find one here. I'm getting my scruffy brush cleaned out here a little bit. As much as I can until I can take it and clean it with the Okay, so on the eyes here, let me zoom in just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to take my turquoise blue. So when you use your liner brush, you need to have some water in it or thin your paint to inky consistency. And this liner brush has some kind of wild, crazy hair on it. A couple of wild, crazy hairs. So when you got some wild, crazy hairs like that, I don't know where I can put it where you can see them. See those wild, crazy hairs right there? I am going to snip them off at the ferrule. Because this is a liner brush and it's got such long bristles, those 3 hairs that I just cut off are not going to change how this brush works. Now if you've got a shorter hair brush, it may change it just a little bit. Okay, I am going to thin my paint to inky consistency by adding water to my paint. We want to stay up on the very tippy toe of this brush. Now you don't have to do this part. If you don't want to do this part on your owl's eyes, you do not have to. I'm going to have to make that just a touch darker, so I'm going to get the teeny tiniest little bit of black. Teeny tiny. Well, maybe the blue would work better. Let me see which one I like better. That looks about the same. So just a teeny tiny bit. There we go. I can't see it. I'm just going to create some lines coming off of the eye all the way around it. If I get my black, I can touch that up. Tippy, tippy, tippy toe. We don't want these to be fat. Okay, so some little lines around there. And I'll go in and touch up my black just in case I got a little bit in there. So you just want to take your black and put a little bit of water in it so it's a nice thin color. So it will dry quickly. Alright, now we're going to go back to our liner brush and some black and outline. Now, if you feel like this is something you can't do, you can use a waterproof pen and do it. Thin me down a little bit more here. And we're going to go around the outside here. I like to keep that on the white, not inside the white. So damp brush wasn't removing it, so I'll take my white eraser and it will remove it right off because the paint has not cured. Love these tri erasers. So sell them on my website. Handiest little thing for removing little paint boo-boos right away. That's a little dark there. You can dip it in water. here. Okay, there are his eyes outlined. We're going to do more to those eyes, so don't think that's all that we're going to be doing there. Okay, let's add a little highlight on our eyes here. We're going to let that dry, and then we're going to add a soft float of lamp black on the top of them. While the eyes dry, we want to start getting ready to do some of the detail on our darker browns here. So if you need to transfer your pattern, you can do that. We're going to create almost a part down the center. Oops. Sorry, I have my pattern stuck to my graphite paper. And it was tearing it. Not good. Okay, so we're going to create a kind of part down the center here. And I'll just put these on here for you to see. We'll have some like little feather things kind of going off like that, and we'll be doing the same thing. Well, not exactly the same thing on the wings. We want to create some. And then over here will be more separation like that. Alright, so our eyes are probably dry. So we're going to take a very sheer float of lamp black. So I'm using a very small brush here. I've got a 6 curve flat, and that's going to be a little bit too dark, so I'm going to take my brush and wipe it off on my paper towel, and then go right here and reload it. We're going to go right across the eye here. This is kind of what I consider the eyelid. And on this side. A little bit of water on my brush here. Just a scooch more paint. We can always come back and darken this. And that kind of sets the eyes back there a little bit. Okay, here we go. Worked on this project for a few days, so let's get back at it. I want to put a little shading underneath his eyes real quick. I'm going to use burnt umber. Get my stronger glasses here. I'm going to start on the very chisel edge of the brush right here on the corner, and then flatten my brush out as I come around and up to the tip here. Flatten my brush and then back up to the tip. It's almost like a reversed C stroke there. I think I want to make that just a touch darker. On the very bottom edge of the eye. Bring that up just a touch more there. So we want the eye to look like it's really set back in there a little bit. I really feel like it needs to go all the way up. Okay, I'm going to touch up my black line on this one. attempt to. I'll have a steady hand first thing in the morning. It's always a little bit trickier here. I'll take some of the paint off my brush here. Tippy toe here. I just think this line needs to be just a touch darker. Now don't worry about doing yours if you're happy with yours, or if you've done yours with I got something on the tip of this brush. Okay. Reload that and try that again. If you've done yours with a micron pen, then and you don't feel like it's dark enough, goodness gracious, and then you can just go back over it with your pen again. That's a little wobbly. Not sure I improved that, but okay. Now, on the blue part of the eye, let me get some of my turquoise blue. And we're going to add just a teeny tiny little bit. Let me show you. Teeny tiny little bit of black in with it. I just want to darken it up just a little bit. Not too dark. I don't want it to look too muddy. We're going to put this on the sides. Or maybe not. I'm not seeming to want to get enough on my brush here. And then our Snow White. We're going to add one more highlight on the eye, and then we're going to go start working on the feathers. I think this will finish up the eyes nicely. Well, maybe I shouldn't have started the morning out using my liner brush. There we go. Not as pretty as I would like it to be, but I'll just leave it there. Okay, so I think that's going to finish up the eyes. We might, while we're here, go ahead and shade around with some burnt umber the beak, so we can bring the beak more forward. Up on the chisel edge here. Just go ahead and add a little bit up here. Get a little touch more water in my brush. Now remember, when you pick up water in your brush, you want to work it into your brush just like you would paint. Okay, I think that's pretty good right there. Alright, we're going to start working up here on the feathers on top. Okay, we're going to go with our burnt umber. I'm going to start out with my curved flat, then I'll switch over probably to a chisel blender here. So we want to create almost like a part down his head. So we're going to come straight down one side. Then we'll turn it around. This is called a back-to-back float, and you're going to go right. Now I like to go right next to it. You don't want any gaps in there. And other designers like to go right on top of the previous one that they did. And then I always mop it to kind of blend it. And we've got our part down the center. Now I'm going to take my chisel blender and I'm going to load burnt umber just on one toe. Let me see if I got a smaller chisel. I'll just stay with this one. I've got a number 8 here, which is probably a little bit big, but so you can go to a smaller brush. Now, all of these like little U things that I made here, we want to go on the bottom of them. You won't have very much paint on your brush. Probably be a good idea if you start at the top instead of the bottom like I just did. So we're just going to make some, we don't want these U's to be really fat. We don't want them to be long strokes. I've got my paint a little bit far on my brush, so reload it here. I am really up on the tippy toe of this brush. Okay, so that's how we're going to start those. Now we're going to go down here to our feathers. And we're going to shade underneath these. This is still with the burnt umber. And then I'm going to do our feathers out here. I'm really up on the toe of this brush because it's a much larger brush than I initially wanted to have. So if your brush is smaller, you don't have to worry so much about being up on the tippy toe like I am. Alright, so while we have this brush, we'll go ahead and do a little bit of shading. On this edge here. Got a scooch too much water in my brush. Push those feathers back a little bit. And we'll go ahead and go underneath this wing. You can get your curved flat or your angle brushes out for this part if you prefer to float with those. A little bit more paint on my brush here. I'll go along the back edge of the wing here. You want to make sure all of these strokes are dry before you do that. Okay, I'm going to remove my graphite lines, and I'm just going to do that with some water because I drew them on with my favorite marking pencil, which was this one, which I sell on my website. Love that pencil. Excuse me. Okay, let's add some highlight on here on our feathers. We're going to start adding some on the tops of these with some fawn. This is just a very small little stroke. If you feel like you lose your shading, your burnt umber that you put on here, you can go back and add that back in. And up on the very tip of this brush. We'll do this on the feathers down here. So we kept our shading to the left side, so we're going to keep our highlight to the right side. So we're just going to go along these lines. And I'll come back and do that very edge there. Okay, so this is probably dry up here. We're going to also want to do the excuse me, the top edge. Kind of walk that down in there. We're just going up to our part line. We don't have to go over that. Just kind of walk that down in there. Go along this edge. Ooh, a little bit too much paint there. We want this to meet at the tip of the nose here. Okay, let's go back over to this other wing. Right here, we're going to highlight on this outer edge here. I think I'm going to have to add a little bit more of that burnt umber back in there. Just a little bit. Keep our wing defined there. Oh, forgot to turn my camera on here. So I'm putting some moon yellow. I put some up here and along the side of the face there. And I'm going to put some on the wing here. A little bit of water in my brush. This is the glow from the moon right along here. On our owl, we'll come back and brighten that up. Now we want to start working on our feathers in here. So you're kind of going to do the same thing that you did up there, only they're going to be much bigger. And you don't want them in a row, you want to offset them. And then down here we'll just create some lines down in his tail down there. Okay, let's add some sable brown on the bottoms. Now these can be a little bit fatter of a float here. And I might have to come back and shade underneath that, around that wing again. It's a little bit too hard of a line there. Okay, and then down here in his tail feathers, we'll shade along each one of our lines here. Adjust the angle of your brush if you need to get up on the toe of it a little bit. Also shade below here, just a scooch, and we can put just a tiny bit here, and a little bit around our feet. Okay, for our highlight on our chest feathers, we are going to take some Snow White and some of our fawn and just kind of brush mix them. Got a little bit too much water in my brush. Can't tell if I have fawn on my brush or not. Okay, so we'll just start out with an equal mix here. And you just brush mix, you don't have to mix a whole bunch at once. So then we'll just highlight on the opposite side here. I'm just going to mix as I go. It's okay if they are not exactly the same color. I think mixing as you go is much easier. You don't have to have so much paint out, and it teaches you to learn how to mix different shades of color. To get where you want to be with your color. Okay, then we're going to go down, beside our shading down here on our tail feathers. Come all the way down. Touch of water in my brush here. And remember, when you get water in your brush, you have to work it in just like you work in paint. Okay, let's go along the chest over here. Now you want to make sure that these strokes are all dry. And then go along up here. going to come back and brighten those. I want to take a little bit of this mix and bring it down here. Alright, let me get some soft black out because I really need to deepen some shading here. And I don't know if the burnt umber by itself is going to do what I need it to do. So I'm going to mix soft black and burnt umber. So I'll just dip into each one and mix it. You could do 2 burnt umber and 1 soft black. I feel like this needs to be a little bit darker here. A little bit along this edge here. Just a couple of feathers. I'll take this mix and shade underneath my tree limb. Mix just a little bit more here. Put just a little bit at the top. Okay, let's brighten our highlight. We're going to go with just Snow White. And we don't have to do it all. We're just going to kind of stay more in the center there. Put a little tiny bit of this Snow White up here. Not too much. And then we'll put some along our wing. Not too much over here because this wing's more in the shadows over there. Okay, let's go down here on our tail feathers and we'll add just a tiny bit down here. And then I'm going to take my burnt umber and soft black mix and I'm going to shade along my tail feathers. Really want to deepen our separation of our feathers. Okay, let's brighten up this side of it. Let's take our white. Got it kind of thinned down with some water here because I don't want it to be super bright. It's more of a glazing of white there. And we're going to get our moon yellow out. And we're going to put some moon yellow. We're going to brighten up our glow just a little bit. Water on my brush here. Got a hard line right here. Don't like that. So I'll take the water edge of my brush and clean that off. Some right here. don't want to make it as big as it was. Okay, I really like the antique gold, so I'm going to take some of it. I just dirty brushed into it. I'm going to thin it down with some water and kind of glaze it over the chest of our owl and down on his tail feathers. Alright, let's work on the beak. We're going to highlight our first highlight with spiced pumpkin. At the top. Can't really see that. I can see it a little bit. Let's shade at the bottom. And you want to make sure your other color is dry. I don't use burnt umber very often because it's very transparent. Shade at the bottom. Okay, let's repeat our highlight with some antique gold. See how that looks on there. And on the tops of our feet here. I think moon yellow might be too bright for this orange, but if you like it, go ahead and add it. I think I'm going to glaze back over his nose anyway, maybe his feet too, with our Tangelo orange. So you're just going to water down your paint. Fill your brush with water and pull some paint out, and then just create a little glazing of water. It's very sheer because we don't want to cover up all the colors we put on there, but I want to get it back to a little bit more of the orange that we started out with. So that's how you can do that. Okay, let's work on our tree limb. Alright, before we move on to our tree limb, let's take our cad yellow and give our final little highlight on our owl. And it will be even less than we did with the moon yellow. So your highlights get smaller and smaller with each color, and that's how you build up a little bit more depth on there. Okay, you're going to want a good liner brush or a very small round brush that has a very good tip on it, very good pointy tip. Oh, let's see. I'm going to grab a liner, I think, because let me see how this round one works. Oops. We're going to start working on our tree limbs here. So we faced this in with burnt umber, didn't we? So think we basted it in with burnt umber. I'm not 100% sure on that. Yes, we basted it in with burnt umber. So I want to draw these limbs out in here, but I think burnt umber might be a little bit too transparent because we had to put a couple of coats to cover that blue. So I'm going to mix some soft black and burnt umber together and just get a color that you like. And then we're just going to create some limbs off of here. And you want to stay up on the tip of your brush to keep these kind of fine. And you don't have to do your tree limbs just like mine. If you've got an idea for a better tree limb, then some water on my palette over here. You need water in your smaller brushes like this. When you're staying up on the tip, you need it to help the paint flow. If you don't have that flow off of your brush, it's going to be very hard to get the more thin lines like you want. Okay, hope I had you on camera for that. Okay, I'm going to get my eraser and erase my graphite lines now. Make sure your paint is dry before you do this, so I can see exactly where my limbs are, because some of my lines that I drew on there I didn't go over exactly. Alright, now let's go on our limb here and thin some soft black down to inky consistency just by adding some water. Load your brush up. You want to get your brush to a nice tip, and then we're just going to create some lines in our tree. Keep these nice and thin. A little knot, maybe a little knot here. This is with soft black. Okay, I'm going to erase these lines that I drew in here. Make sure your paint is dry or you'll just erase it or smear it. Let's see if I can see my lines good enough. You might want to come back with a little bit of lamp black in there. So take a little bit of lamp black and thin it down. And keep this one really, really really thin. I'm just going underneath where I put those previous lines, trying to keep them still on there, but if you can't, then you can just do your lining with lamp black. So I'll leave that choice up to you there. Okay, I think I want to bring this out a little bit. A little bit more there. Kind of ended a little bit too abruptly there. Okay, let's highlight on here with some sable brown. Again, inky consistency. And we'll create our highlights on here. Okay, we'll put a little bit of this along our limbs. Just kind of a hit and miss thing. Haven't decided if I'm going to put leaves on here yet. This will also help the limbs show up a little bit more. So just a little bit. We're just creating a wood grain look here. Okay, I've got a little bit larger curved flat or angle brush, whatever you want it to do. I'm going to take my lamp black and mix just a little bit of burnt umber in with it. Or soft black, not burnt umber. So it's just kind of darkening up the soft black there. And we're going to float along. Maybe. Maybe not. Along the bottom of our tree branch here. Get you on camera so you can see what I'm doing, huh? Just along the bottom, all the way. I think just doing it with soft black will be just as fine, because that burnt umber was pretty dark. So, did I say soft black, lamp black? You don't want your tree limb to be just straight. Give it some character in it, by adding some dips and irregularities in your limb. You don't want it to be just a straight limb. Okay, we're going to highlight the upper edge with a mix of sable brown and fawn. We have 2 sable browns and 1 fawn. And we're going to go, maybe not quite so much paint, along our upper edge here. Bring that over just a little bit, I think, because this is a pretty fat limb back here. Get my mop brush, I'm going to mop that just a little bit. Kind of blend it. Okay, I want to add some more yellow on the bird, I think. Start with antique gold. I think I want to put a little bit here because I want to put some glow on the limb. Let's put a little bit on the tail feathers there. This glow is not going to be as bright because it's going to, it's not as close to the moon, so we're only going to add a little bit of moon yellow right here. to bring it up to meet this one. It doesn't quite look right if it's not meeting it. Okay. I think we'll go ahead and put just a scooch down here. Just a little bit. Okay, so on the limb, I think it's dry. We're going to go back to our antique gold. Put it on here. Give it a little bit of moon glow. And I'll take my round brush and put a little bit on our limbs. This is antique gold. I think I'll keep it mostly on that one over there. And we're going to come in with our moon yellow. Make sure that's dry. And we're going to add some of this in here. Just kind of right there in the center area. And I'm going to take a little bit of cad yellow and add on my branches here. I still haven't decided if I'm going to add some limbs, some leaves on these trees yet. These limbs. A little bit of cad yellow right there. Just a scooch. Don't want too much. Alright, I've decided to add a few leaves. We're going to use, on this branch over here, we're going to use Tangelo Orange and Moon Yellow, because they will be the brightest leaves. And I'm just using a filbert brush, and you can put as many or as few leaves as you want on your limb. Okay, then over here on this one, I'm just going to wipe the brush out, and I'm going to load Spiced Pumpkin and Antique Gold. And we'll put these colors over here. And again, you can have as little or as many leaves as you like. You can leave the leaves completely off if you don't like the leaves. Need a little bit more pumpkin. And I'm just literally laying the brush down and letting some limbs come off, some leaves come off of it. I'm not making them fancy or not particularly making them look exactly like leaves. Just kind of giving the illusion. Down here, these will have the same color. Just kind of dab them on there. You can have a couple coming off of the branch right here. Let me wide angle out so we can see it a little bit better. I think I'll take a little tiny bit of cad yellow. These leaves, I'll just put a little bit of cad yellow on them, a Really give them a little bit of glow from the moon. Just where my yellow is. Oop, that was a lot of yellow. Too much on my brush, now I can't get enough. I think I might add a tiny bit of white on there. Just on these, just a little. A little bit. Just for a little brighter. And I think one more thing I need to do down here. I'm going to take some burnt umber and soft black. Just a tiny bit of soft black and mix it in with the burnt umber and get a nice sheer float. Don't have a lot of thick paint on your brush, just sheer float, so you have to mix some water with that. And I want to get the tail feathers a little bit more shading here. Okay, I just did a little wash of spiced pumpkin. I just felt like he needed a little bit more color. It wasn't quite bright enough of a owl for me. So I mean, it is the sheerest of colors here. A little bit of moon yellow and a little bit of white. Now, this step here you don't have to do. I just want it to be a touch brighter. Probably the moon yellow wasn't the best choice because it makes it look like the glow is wrapping around him, so I'll just remove that. It was just a glaze of color, so it comes off very, very easily. But I think I will put a little bit more of the spiced pumpkin on him. Alright, now you can add that spiced pumpkin or not, that's up to you, but I think that's going to finish our little night owl. I think he turned out cute as could be. I love it. I like the color on the side. It kind of goes with the color that we put in the beak and the leaves, so I don't need to change the side at all, but if you wanted to change the side, then black would be a nice color to paint it, and you could, you know, stencil on some fun Halloween stuff. But there you go. A nice gift box to give someone. If you have a grandkid, you could fill it with candy at Halloween and give it to them. And make coasters. That's what I like to do. I like to make coasters that match the top and stick them down in there and have it as a gift. So if you've got a friend that really loves owls, this would make a wonderful gift for them, and make a set of coasters to go with it. And I believe I sell the coaster size that fits inside this box on my website. But this was a fun project to do. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'm going to see you guys on the next project.